Chapter 1412. Director Yang still didn't know the situation and spoke up bravely. Miss Pei insisted that her father's illness was related to Mr. Tang Boyong. Miss Tang Shu had no choice but to ask you to come over. Tang Shu smiled faintly. Director Jiang is a very nice person. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't have troubled him. These words were also a way to tell others that Director Jiang treated her very well and would help her solve these problems. Director Yang smiled even more brightly. Since that's the case then. Unexpectedly, before Director Yang could finish speaking, Jiang Song had already walked in front of Bai Yunj. Miss Pei, it's you. Bai Yunj's eyelids twitched. She only glanced at the young man in front of her and said indifferently, "What's the matter?" Jiang Song suddenly had a bad feeling. No way. Although they were online friends, she couldn't possibly not recognize him, right? The others were shocked and felt that this young lady of the Qin family was really bold. However, Jiang Song was used to Bai Yunj's coldness. He said excitedly, "I'm Jiang Song." Bai Yunj looked at the newspaper and frowned. She stepped back with her heels on the ground and distanced herself from this mentally unstable man in front of her. The scene was very quiet. Jiang Song saw Bai Yunj's cold and disdainful expression that said, "You'd better not talk to me." He was instantly hurt. *CK, was this a scumbag? At this moment, the smile on Tang Shu's face completely froze. She had never seen Jiang Song so close to anyone. Could it be that these two people knew each other? As soon as this thought appeared in Tang Shu's mind, she interrupted herself. This was impossible. Director Jiang, Miss Pei probably doesn't like strangers approaching her, Tang Shu said with a fake smile. I'm a stranger? Jiang Song thought that Tang Shu was hilarious. No one knew Max better than he did, okay? You don't know me? Jiang Song was so angry that he forced a smile and nodded. He immediately sent a message to Bai Yunj. Just as he was waiting for Bai Yunj's ringtone to ring, the scene was quiet for a whole minute. Jiang Song's bad premonition intensified, but he refused to believe it. He looked incredulously at Bai Yunj, who had a look of disbelief on her face that said, "I'd like to see what other tricks you can play." Then he called Bai Yunj. In the end, after a long while, Bai Yunj's phone didn't even ring in her pocket. This made Jiang Song have a conjecture that he had to believe. Did this guy King blacklist him? Was she for real? Wasn't he just calling her a few more times? How could he be such a beast? Jiang Song felt suffocated. Pei, Lu Jian answered thoughtfully, Bai Yunj. Bai Yunj, did you blacklist me? Jiang Song was so angry that he almost fainted. Bai Yunj's eyelids twitched before she looked at Jiang Song. It was as if she was thinking about which person on her blacklist would this be. Jiang Song. Bai Yunj quickly remembered. Jiang Song? Jiang Song put on a fake smile and then said in a sarcastic tone, "I'm really touched that you can still remember me with your noble brain." Bai Yunj moved her lower lip. She looked at Jiang Song's hurt expression and wanted to explain something, but she paused for half a minute. She turned her head and didn't look at Jiang Song. She changed the topic stiffly. When can we interrogate him? Jiang Song, who was about to be coaxed. P.S. Good night. Chapter 1413. Good. She didn't even bother to brush him off. When Lu Jian heard this, he glanced at Jiang Song subconsciously and said, "We can interrogate him now. Are you coming with me?" Bai Yunj nodded. When Bai Yunj and Jiang Song turned around and prepared to leave, Tang Shu immediately said, "Chief Jiang, my uncle." When Jiang Song heard this, he became unhappy and his face immediately darkened. He had almost been tricked by Tang Shu. Her uncle? Why did she look for him when her uncle was in trouble? Was she trying to be a scapegoat for her uncle? Tang Shu, you have more guts than I do. How dare you try to get someone out of her hands? Jiang Song laughed angrily. Originally, he thought that Tang Shu had a good foundation and wanted to see if she was suitable to be his successor. But now, Tang Shu's ability to cause trouble was really unsuitable. Tang Shu and Chief Yang's expressions changed when they heard this. They knew very well that the she Jiang Song was referring to was none other than Bai Yunj. Even Jiang Song didn't dare to provoke her. Where did this Bai Yunj come from? Chief Yang regretted it even more at this time. He could only smile and ask, are you and Miss Pei friends? The smile on Jiang Song's face was even more frightening. Who knows? After all, not many people's friends would be on the blacklist. Chief Yang was speechless. Tang Shu secretly clenched her fists when she thought about how that person liked Bei Yunj. She asked stubbornly, Chief Jiang, my uncle is the former heir of the Fernan's family. Do you really think that I can't afford to offend Bei Yunj? When Jiang Song heard this, he completely lost his good impression of Tang Shu. Tang Shu, I've reminded you about this. He caught a glimpse of a foreign document on the table from the corner of his eye. It was an Interpol red warrant. Jiang Song's pupils shrank, and he couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. He knew very well that in the international field, there were no more than 3 people who could issue this red warrant in such a short time. And the most likely person to secretly help Bei Yunj was the founder of CI7, who had disappeared a few years ago. Jiang Song sneered and continued, Let's not talk about Bei Yunj first. Who do you think issued this red arrest order? With that person's identity, even the people from the headquarters did not have the ability to interfere. The Fernan's family? Do you really think they have the guts? Tang Shu's face immediately turned pale. She couldn't help but bite her lips. She couldn't stand steadily, and was on the verge of collapsing. Her voice was a little sharp and trembling, as if she was still unable to accept reality. A red warrant? How was this possible? Tang Shu stood far away at that time. She only thought that the 2 pieces of paper from Bei Yunj were red documents issued by Yunqing at most. Therefore, Higgins' men did not dare to offend Bei Yunj. However, CI7 was not bound by any country. That was why she boldly found Jiang Song. She wanted to use the status of an international organization to take the opportunity to pressure the Yun City Department. However, he never thought that Bei Yunj's other document would come from Interpol. Jiang Song couldn't be bothered to say more. He only said, with Bei Yunj's personality, why would she provoke her for no reason? Whatever your uncle has done, you should let him bear the consequences. At most, let him go to jail for a few years. When Bei Yunj's anger subsides, she won't dislike you. Tang Shu suddenly felt that this matter was ridiculous. She had always been looked up to by others. She still had to wait for Bei Yunj's anger to subside and hope that Bei Yunj wouldn't mind her. After Jiang Song left, Director Yang finally saw the red headers of the command center of the theater of operations, as well as the arrest warrant from Interpol. He almost passed out. He had never thought that Bei Yunj would actually bring the highest arrest warrant from the Warzone headquarters and Interpol. However, Director Yang regretted it even more when he thought of what he had just done. Chapter 14:14. He actually helped Tang Shu mock Bei Yunj. Director Yang's heart sank. If he had known that Bei Yunj had a close relationship with the Warzone headquarters, he wouldn't have ruined his future here. It was all Tang Shu's fault. Director Yang couldn't help but grit his teeth and smile insincerely. Miss Tang is really good at dragging people into the water. I didn't expect CI7 to not even care about the Interpol red warrant. With that, Director Yang left, leaving Tang Shu with a gloomy and embarrassed expression. She gritted her teeth and her nails almost dug into the flesh of her palms. She didn't believe it. How could this woman be so capable? In the interrogation room, Tang Boyang was tied to a chair and wanted to strangle Bei Yunj. He never expected that he would be forced to this point by a silly girl. Did you hear that? I'm going to contact my family now. Tang Boyang roared furiously. The next moment, the person who pushed the door open was the person Tang Boyang hated the most. The hatred in Tang Boyang's eyes didn't last long. Suddenly, he heard Bei Yunj laugh. She sat opposite him. Why? Are you waiting for Qi Wuxia to save you? Tang Boyang's body stiffened and he panicked for no reason. How did Bei Yunj know about Qi Wuxia? Don't worry, I'll let you guys reunite here later. Bei Yunj crossed her legs and played with the fountain pen in her hand. There was a coldness in her casual voice. Tang Boyang's scalp went numb and a thought popped up in his mind. What a lunatic. This was the first time Tang Boyang had seen someone who wasn't afraid of Qi Wuxia. Qi Wuxia was famous for being ruthless. The number of ruthless people who had been tortured to death by him could be counted on 2 hands. Therefore, the international circle had always avoided this person. Tang Boyang's eyes became more and more sarcastic. Bei Yunj, what do you think you're capable of? How dare you provoke Qi Wuxiao? Aren't you afraid that the Qin family won't even have a descendant? These words also told Bei Yunj that Qi Wuxiao was the one who had killed old Master Qin. He wanted to see how this woman would dig her own grave. Bei Yunj narrowed his eyes and looked a little indifferent, but the atmosphere gradually became oppressive. The coldness in his eyes carried an almost uncontrollable thirst for blood. But the next moment, she looked up and smiled playfully. Mr. Tang is right. Isn't there a better way? Tang Boyang still didn't understand what he meant. She propped up her cheek with one hand and asked lazily, if Tang Boyang finds out that you were the main reason why his bases were destroyed twice, he'll be furious. Do you think he'll find a way to get you out and break your bones one by one? When Tang Boyang heard this, he immediately felt a chill down his spine. What nonsense are you talking about? He suddenly realized something, and his voice became uncontrollably distorted. How do you know that Qi Wuxiao's base was destroyed? Tang Boyang felt a chill run down his spine as he frantically tried to break free from the prison chair. It's you. You did it, didn't you? He had never thought that the person who could destroy most of Qi Wuxiao's forces would be Bei Yunj. Even now, Qi Wuxiao probably didn't know who had targeted him. Huh? Is that so? Bei Yunj slowly curled the corners of her lips and looked at Tang Boyang, who was about to break down. Then in 2 days, when Qi Wuxiao goes crazy and comes looking for you, you can tell him yourself. Bei Yunj, you lunatic. What are you trying to do? Tang Boyang knew that Bei Yunj wanted Qi Wuxiao to mistake him for a traitor, so that Qi Wuxiao could kill him personally. This person was an evil spirit who had crawled out of hell. Chapter 14-15. What's the point of a dog that likes to bite with only half of its teeth broken? Bei Yunj suddenly chuckled, but her tone made Tang Boyang shudder. However, with that, Bei Yunj stood up and prepared to leave. Tang Boyang suddenly came back to his senses. He struggled frantically. Bei Yunj, come back. What are you doing? Come back. Bei Yunj ignored him and her back did not stop at all. Bei Yunj, I won't let you off. Don't think that Shirdu can protect you. Outside the door, Lu Jian couldn't help but ask, what did you say to him? Nothing. Bei Yunj looked at him and said lazily, I'll leave him to you. Lu Jian nodded. Don't worry, I'll get useful information from him. The next day, the head of the physics department had just opened the door when he saw Bei Yunj sitting inside. After a moment of silence, he resisted the urge to close the door and leave. What are you doing here? Logically speaking, teachers like them should like students with good grades. However, Bei Yunj just happened to be a headache. What good could it be for her to come over personally? Bei Yunj handed him the leave slip and said gently, Dean, I want to apply for leave. The dean took a deep breath. Do you have any special circumstances? Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before saying honestly, No. The dean. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence. The dean's expression also turned ugly. He put on a fake smile. Bei Yunj, I know you're quite capable, but Yin University has no precedent of giving people special privileges. Besides, if you come to apply for leave whenever you have nothing to do, others will follow your example. How can I still be the dean? Bei Yunj nodded after hearing this. Just as the dean's brows relaxed, he heard her ask again, Then do you think I'm skipping class? The dean. He couldn't help but cough a few times. He clutched his heart and sat down to drink a glass of water. How about this? The third-year students will have their holidays half a month earlier than you guys. I'll give you a chance. If you can get a score of 85 or above in the final exam of your third year, I'll allow you to take a leave of absence. This way, I can also give an explanation to the others. All right. Perhaps because Bei Yunj agreed too quickly, the dean choked on his water again. He raised his head abruptly and asked, Are you serious? Bei Yunj answered casually, Yes. If you don't get 85 marks this time, you won't get any final results, and I won't give you a leave of absence in the future. The dean placed the teacup on the table and said calmly. Obviously, he had a card up his sleeve. Bei Yunj licked the corner of her lips as her eyes curled up lazily. Sure. After Bei Yunj left, The other professors couldn't help but turn their heads to look at the dean, as if they were condemning him with their eyes. What kind of joke was this? This year's third-year physics students were using experimental teaching materials. It was very different from what Bei Yunj had learned in the physics textbooks in the country. Not to mention Bei Yunj, all the third-year students in this year's cohort were having a hard time learning. Therefore, even among the students in this year's cohort, no one was confident that they could get more than 85 marks in all the subjects. Wasn't the dean obviously trying to trick them? Dean, be nicer to our department's seated players. The female professor from the physics department muttered. Is there anyone who plays such dirty tricks like you? The dean was disapproving and proud. What do you mean by playing dirty tricks? All is fair in war. Chapter 14-16. The dean grabbed a handful of fish food and walked to the transparent fish box to feed it. Our Yin University child is good at everything, but he's too arrogant and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Isn't this Bei Yunj the first one to suffer? He's very unruly. The dean snorted. He was already looking forward to the outcome of this group of arrogant people being beaten up by society. This time, the one who came up with the exam paper is Professor Smith, who transferred from Neely University. I won't let him show mercy. I have to teach this group of immature brats a lesson. In the living room, Huashidu was listening to the economic news as he casually scanned the documents in his hand. Only old Master Fernanz's face darkened with anger. He leaned on his walking stick and said angrily, "What do you mean by this? I know you don't have a good relationship with Roland, but is there anyone who would send their biological father to jail like this?" Zhou Yu frowned and instinctively defended him. "Old Master, this has nothing to do with Master Du." As soon as he finished speaking, Huashida glanced at him unhurriedly, making Zhou Yu immediately shut his mouth and stop talking. "It has nothing to do with you? If it has nothing to do with you, then who else in Yuncheng can touch Roland?" Fernanz did not believe it. He had always been angry and heartbroken at his biological grandson. He felt sorry for Huashidu for not doing well, but he was also angry that he always acted on his own. He did not care who said it. The assistant who had been following Tang Boyang saw that Huashida did not intend to explain, so he could only say, "Old Master, it has nothing to do with Mr. Hua. It's mainly because of the young lady from the Qin family in Yincheng." As soon as he finished speaking, the man who had been silent suddenly raised his pale-colored eyes. His gaze made one's heart palpitate. The assistant felt a chill in his heart. He subconsciously lowered his head and did not dare to say anything bad about Bei Yunj. "Miss Qin?" Fernanz thought for a while before he suddenly remembered. "It's that girl Bei Yunj?" Zhou Yu saw Fernanz looking over and immediately turned his head guiltily. However, Fernanz understood. It was actually Bei Yunj who did it. At this moment, the man sitting on the sofa turned off the television and slowly said, "Grandfather wants to interfere, so I won't stand by and do nothing." This was the first time Huashidu had called him that, so Fernanz was stunned for a moment. But he quickly realized what was going on. Didn't Huashida's words mean that he was obviously siding with an outsider, and saying that he would protect that brat? Fernanz's face immediately darkened. "I really have a good grandson." Fernanz could not suppress his anger. "All right. Then let me ask you, how did Roland provoke that girl? Why are you so cruel?" Huashidu asked. "Why don't you go and ask?" Seeing the two of them arguing, the old butler, who had been silent, also spoke up in a low voice. "Sir, it seems like it's because Miss Pei's biological grandfather was poisoned and is still in a coma. It's related to Roland." "What?" Fernanz's expression changed. When he looked at Huashidu, he realized that this was true. Next, just as Fernanz was speaking in a low voice, "If that's the case, I'm sure that girl won't be able to sleep these few days. She must be feeling heavy-hearted. For the sake of her family, she has no choice but to." Suddenly, a casual voice came from the corridor outside. "Aunt Meow, hello Aunt Meow. Have you seen where my good brother is?" Aunt Meow suppressed the corners of her lips that were curling up desperately and coughed. She gestured for Bei Yunj, who was blowing bubble gum and holding a bag of snacks in her pocket, to look inside. Bei Yunj subconsciously turned around and looked at 4 or 5 people coldly. Chapter 14-17. For a moment, the atmosphere fell into an awkward silence. Then, the man lowered his peach blossom eyes and walked out to Bei Yunji's side. He saw that Bei Yunji was chewing bubble gum silently and did not say a word. He found it funny and casually used his long fingers to stroke the black hair by her cheek. What's wrong? Bei Yunji looked at the man in front of her. She felt that this person was up to no good, but she still said, "It's a little embarrassing." As expected, the man's originally indifferent expression disappeared. He could not help but lower his head and bend down to press his forehead against the little girl's neck. Bei Yunji was very sensitive at this moment, and was vaguely angry from embarrassment. "Hoshidu." She was expressionless. "You're secretly laughing." Brother isn't." The man's clear breath was filled with a magnetic smile. Bei Yunji felt the man's short hair on her neck. It was a little ticklish and her ears slowly turned red. "Dog man." The man held Bei Yunji's hand and slowly inserted his fingers into hers. This action was indescribably ambiguous. He suddenly spoke leisurely. "Yunyan, don't scold people secretly." Bei Yunji wanted to scold him even more. Seeing that the little girl was really unhappy, Hoshidu immediately coaxed her intimately. However, his laughter was low and hoarse. His light tone was seductive, and seemed to be teasing the wind beside her ear. "It's okay. Didn't my good brother come to pick up our Yunyan?" Back in the living room, Fernans was already sitting on the sofa, drinking the tea made by the old butler. "Why are you here?" Fernan's tone was not good, as if he did not welcome Bei Yunji. Bei Yunji's face was not red and her heart was not beating fast. "The exam is in a few days. I want to go home and ask my brother to help me revise." This sentence shocked Zhou Yu. Miss Pei's ability to brag without thinking was getting better and better. Fernans asked in disbelief, "Don't tell me you repeated your year again?" Bei Yunji. The scene fell silent. Especially the assistant Tang Boyang called to complain. Seeing that not only did Fernans not find trouble with Bei Yunji, but he also cared about whether others had repeated their year. The corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. Those who did not know would think that Bei Yunji was his biological granddaughter. Not this time. Bei Yunji glanced at Hoshidu slowly. "Older brother taught me well." As soon as she finished speaking, Zhou Yu glanced at the man whose expression was normal, and allowed Bei Yunji to fool around. His eyelids twitched uncontrollably. "Sir, you are so concerned about me." Bei Yunji's lazy words sounded like she was sighing, making Fernan's face turn red. Fernans. Bei Yunji. Then the old master changed the topic, as if he was firing at Hoshidu again. "If we, the Fernans family, can't even teach our own wife well, how can we hope to teach our future children well?" Hoshidu glanced at Bei Yunji casually and said, "I will teach them well." Bei Yunji turned to look at him. Fernans was satisfied, but the assistant was anxious. He immediately lowered his voice and said, "Sir, then Mr. Roland he." "Why? Do you think the surnamed Fernans is Roland's protection?" The old master's tone was calm, but it carried a dignity that brooked no argument. Chapter 14-18. The assistant wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end he shut his mouth. "Since this matter has something to do with the Qin family, let the little girl's family investigate." Fernan's tone was calm. "Our Fernan's family can't afford to lose face like this." Bei Yunji subconsciously looked at Fernans. She did not expect the old master to say that. The old butler looked at Fernans, but his heart was as clear as a mirror. Although the old master was a good person, he was still protective of his children. The old master was determined to make Tang Boyang accept the punishment, because he really liked Miss Pei. He did not want his grandson's marriage to be ruined because of Tang Boyang's mistake. In the end, the person the old master felt most guilty about was still the young master. Fernans looked at Bei Yunji. "Girl, how is your grandfather?" Bei Yunji said, "He will be cured." Fernans nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. When he looked at Bei Yunji, his tone was serious and a little sour. "Girl, you can't bully him because of this. Someone doesn't even care if he betrays his family for you." Bei Yunji heard this and looked at Hoshidu beside her. He continued, "Whatever mistake Roland made, I'll make him bear the consequences." Fernans left. In the car, the old butler couldn't help but say, "Sir, actually, you dote on Mr. Roland very much. You can ask Miss Pei." Fernand shook his head. He looked much older than before, but his silver-white hair was still combed neatly, like a refined old gentleman from the last century. "To me, I did a lot of wrong things in the past, so much so that I'll live with the guilt of my conscience for the rest of my life." His wrinkled hands were like the bark of an old tree, and his fingers rubbed his walking stick. "I betrayed God. Some sins and punishments can only end with my life." He had let his wife down. He had also let Roland's mother down, and he had not taught Roland well. Therefore, he did not want Huashidu to have any more regrets. "Brother seems to have found out earlier than me." Bei Yunj looked straight at the man, not questioning him. The man looked at her sideways. Although he didn't admit it, the way he looked at her was deliberately teasing her. Bei Yunj thought of Fernand's words just now and did not intend to force Huashidu to admit it. Instead, she could not help but laugh. Just as Huashidu thought that the young lady was about to fly into a rage out of humiliation, Bei Yunj suddenly walked towards him. She only tugged at his sleeve with one hand and leaned her head against his firm and warm chest. The man paused for a moment. He lowered his peach blossom eyes without saying a word, dark and gloomy emotions brewing in his eyes. Bei Yunj leaned against his chest unscrupulously and rubbed against him intimately. There was a rare hint of dependence in her voice. "Brother, I don't dare to bet on everything." She was also afraid. He was afraid that this matter would make this person unhappy. To Huashidu, the little girl's intimacy was more like a bewitching potion that made people lose their rationality. The man's sexy Adam's apple with a clear mole couldn't help but move. He closed his eyes and suppressed the desire in his eyes. Huashidu reached out and tugged at the back of the little girl's collar. He was not rude, but it was obvious that the man had lost his usual restraint. The next moment he picked up Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj subconsciously hooked her arms around his neck and was placed on the table. Huashidu raised his eyes, which could not suppress the black tide, and looked into the little girl's eyes. The moment he spoke, his voice was low and hoarse, with an uncontrollable desire that Bei Yunj had never heard before. "Bei Yunj, don't give your bottom line to anyone." The man's eyes were still unclear. "Including me. Do you understand?" Chapter 14:19. Huashidu looked at the dazed young lady in front of him and tried his best to disperse the darkness in his eyes. For the first time, he detested himself. He was not a good person either. He knew how despicable and absurd he was, but he still used despicable methods to seduce a young lady who did not know the ways of the world. He wanted to drag her into hell and let her feel the dirtiest desire buried in his body. However, he thought about how flowers bloomed wherever she went. She was full of glory and love. "Brother!" Bei Yunj suddenly shouted. She deliberately leaned close to his ear and used a tone that was even more deadly to men. The man had long been used to the young lady's nonsense. In the next moment he lowered his eyes. He carelessly scratched the young lady's chin, indicating for her to be obedient. No one knew. His selfishness was a love that even the gods avoided. However, it was tamed by the young lady and turned into an evil dragon that pulled out its claws and teeth. Huashidu looked at the ignorant young lady in front of him. The darkness in his eyes faded bit by bit. He suddenly laughed softly and held her hand casually. His voice sounded inexplicably explicit and sexy in her ears. "Yunyan, have you thought it through? Have you decided how to play with my life?" When these words came out of the man's mouth, there was an inexplicable ambiguity. "At Yin University? What's wrong with you? You look like you've been sucked dry by a male demon?" Su Xianing's lips twitched when she saw Bei Yunj's daydreaming expression. Bei Yunj held her cheek and sighed. "I want to too." Su Xianing choked on her soy milk. Could she be more reserved? However, when she thought about Bei Yunj's boyfriend, it was indeed difficult for her to control herself. "You guys haven't done that yet?" After regaining her senses, Su Xianing leaned over sneakily. "Is it because your President Hua is old-fashioned? Or is it because there might be a problem?" Bei Yunj. After sensing Bei Yunj's cold gaze, Su Xianing felt a chill on her neck and immediately said, "I'm just concerned about you. The sooner this problem is solved, the sooner it will be solved." Bei Yunj turned around and said impatiently, "He's fine." It was not that Huashidu did not react to her. However, every time he was about to fire, Huashidu would rather take a cold shower. Bei Yunj. Could it be that he thought she was incapable? "I'm afraid that President Hu still treats you like a child," Su Xianing said casually, but her words hit Bei Yunj right where it hurt. Bei Yunj. Su Xianing once again felt a certain master's death stare. It can't be right? Do you have to be like this even when you're telling the truth? As the atmosphere gradually turned cold, Su Xianing suddenly raised her hand. "I have a solution." When Bei Yunj heard this, she just looked at her calmly for a while and sneered softly. This kind of extremely mocking laughter immediately provoked Su Xianing. "What do you mean? Are you looking down on me?" "No," Bei Yunj replied perfunctorily. "Su Xianing. This bastard." Su Xianing took a deep breath and suppressed her temper. She smiled slightly. "Don't doubt me. When you find an opportunity, I guarantee that President Hu won't be able to tolerate it." Bei Yunj pursed her lips. She did not believe Su Xianing's nonsense. However, she did not expect Su Xianing to really start preparing seriously. The final exams were approaching. Even the students of Yin University did not look relaxed. They wished that they could stay in the library for the next few weeks. Chapter 1420. In the library, Hai Ning scanned her surroundings and checked the situation of the class. She asked casually, "Where's Bei Yunj?" Meng Wenwen chuckled. "She's the top scholar. Why would she care about this final exam?" Hearing this, Hai Ning pursed her lips and tightened her grip on the book. This semester, no one in the class was as hardworking as she was, and no one knew how hard she had worked to beat everyone else, especially Bei Yunj. Meng Wenwen suddenly noticed Hai Ning's expression and immediately said, "Ning Ning, I heard that the professors in the department intend to increase the difficulty of this exam, especially for this batch of third-year students. Bei Yunj doesn't even revise. She will definitely be eliminated this time. How amazing is it to be talented? How can she compare to you, Ning Ning?" Hai Ning's expression improved. She just opened her book and continued to revise. Then she smiled and said, "I don't value these things. I just hope that I can learn more." Actually, Hai Ning and the rest were not the only ones paying attention to Bei Yunj. Even the students from the other classes were paying attention to this top scholar, who skipped class every day. They heard that this top scholar was even more arrogant than the previous top scholars. She basically didn't attend class. However, there was a top scholar rule at Yin University. Every year, as long as the top scholar of the college entrance examination was extremely arrogant, they would not be able to enter the top 3 during the first-year final exam. This might be the first beating of the chosen one who was about to enter society. Hence, some people from the physics department even made private bets. How many places could this top scholar's father enter? When everyone thought of Bei Yunj's arrogant and unbridled personality, most people bet on the top 5, and some bet on the top 10. Anyway, there were very few people who bet on the top 3, let alone first place. At the same time, Bei Yunj, who was being treated as a gambler, was busy in the laboratory and did not even look up. Si Qingyan chewed on an apple as he watched the school news. He glanced at Bei Yunj, who was so focused that she ignored everything. "I say, why are you so stubborn and insist on going to the physics department? Aren't you graduating with your eyes closed?" Si Qingyan was puzzled. Bei Yunj had been studying at Yin University to confuse people with ulterior motives. After all, no one would have thought that the new scientific researcher of country A was actually a freshman at Yin University. This arrangement was also for Bei Yunj's safety. However, they were both studying at Yin University. Bei Yunj was in the computer science department, which was much more convenient than the physics department. "Professor C, that's enough. If it weren't for my dedication to scientific research, my grandfather would have sent me to the finance department." Bei Yunj had just taken off her goggles and latex gloves when she spoke slowly. Si Qingyan was speechless. Bei Yunj's patience with her elders was even scarier than some parents' love for their children. However, after hearing this, Si Qingyan realized that old Master Qin really doted on Bei Yunj. She probably wanted Bei Yunj to study finance, because she was afraid that her 3 brothers might not treat Bei Yunj well after she passed away. He still wanted to give the company's shares to Bei Yunj. Si Qingyan clicked his tongue, amused by old master's partiality. Why was this old master guarding against his own grandson, as if he was an outsider? Until the 3rd year's final exam began. The students in the 2nd examination hall suddenly noticed an unfamiliar face, and couldn't help but take another look at Bei Yunj in the 3rd row. Damn. Someone became excited. This seems to be Bei Yunj. Chapter 14:21. Bei Yunj. The 3rd-year seniors were confused. Why was a 1st-year student here? The senior beside them was very excited. She's the 1st-year top scorer. His words also attracted the attention of the other top scorer of the college entrance examination. The 3rd-year top scorer asked in a strange tone, "Junior, are you here to revise?" Bei Yunj laughed softly and said lazily, "I have some private matters to attend to, so I came to take the exam in advance." As soon as she finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly fell into a strange silence. The 3rd-year students. Was it appropriate for her to speak in such a casual tone, friend? They had long heard that the top scorer of this cohort was unbelievably wild, but they didn't expect her to come to the 3rd-year exam so arrogantly. Was she planning to go to heaven? Perhaps because the top scorer met, the atmosphere became inexplicably awkward. The top scorer put on a smile on his face, but his tone became more ambiguous. "Is that so? Junior, do you know that the top scorer of the college entrance examination every year tends to perform poorly in the 1st-year final exam?" Speaking of this, Huang Hingyuan seemed even more superior. It was rumored that Huang Hingyuan was the only top scorer of Yin University in the past few years who had been in the 1st place for 3 years. Therefore, before Bei Yunj entered the university, Huang Hingyuan's popularity in the school was not inferior to Bei Yunj's. Huang Hingyuan's words were clearly telling Bei Yunj that she might not even do well in the 1st-year final exam. Bei Yunj said perfunctorily and leaned back lazily. Her eyes were indescribably unrestrained and unrestrained. "I don't know." As soon as she finished speaking, the other 3rd-year students were speechless. In the past, in the eyes of the freshmen, they would be respectfully addressed as seniors. When they met the members of the student union, they would also obediently praise them. However, when this person sat here, her aura inexplicably suppressed the others and made them speechless. Moreover, they felt that the way Bei Yunj looked at them seemed to be saying, "This group of seniors is not good enough." The 3rd-year students. F***CK, they had never met such an arrogant person in their lives. After the exam began, these 3rd-year students suddenly wanted to laugh wildly when they saw the computer test paper. The new top scorer definitely didn't know that the 3rd-year final exam had a special scope. Didn't they, the 3rd-year students, spend all night in the library for nothing? Thinking of this, the group of students became even more fired up and began to answer the questions crazily. The dignity of the 3rd-year seniors must be maintained. However, half an hour later, the 3rd-year seniors who had yet to establish their dignity withered. Looking at the remaining half of the questions, they almost blacked out. Professor Smith was a ruthless man. Was this paper for a human? Meanwhile, Huang Zui was drinking tea with the other professors in the physics department's 3rd-year supervisor's office. "I bet these kids won't be able to finish it in less than an hour." Smith's face was filled with pure joy. Huang Zui's mouth twitched at Smith's Chinese. The other professors were obviously too excited. "When I received this question, it took me more than an hour to solve it." Smith was really ruthless. This time, won't these brats obediently admit defeat? Another professor agreed. "If we don't suppress them, they'll really think they're Huntington. They'll think that they'll each have a Norstein Physics Award." They had to suppress the arrogance of these brats. Suddenly, Smith looked at another professor. "Olda, what are you refreshing over there? How could someone hand in the paper at this time?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.